Okay, we now welcome on our good friend, recurring guest. Been too long. It is Ryen Russillo, draft expert. Yeah, you're a draft expert.
NBA insider.
Watched all the tape. Knows everything.
Ryen, I'm told you talk to a lot of guys around the league. Is that true?
Everyone.
How many guys,
sources,
like on a weekly basis, would you say you talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, probably, I don't know. It's probably around 5 a week. But, I mean, some weeks you just don't want to talk to anybody either. And I'm sure plenty of times they don't want to talk to me. But, the funny thing is you can talk and talk and talk. And even guys that do this for a living, work for teams, like you'll think something on, especially in a week like this, you'll think something last week. And there's multiple things that I already have changed my mind on based on information. So, guys that get paid for it and have the pressure of actually having to hit send on getting stuff right, those guys have way more pressure than a guy like, me or anybody that just talks to people and you're like, this could be something that's happening, so we get off easy. But it sucks when you get stuff wrong. It's the worst.
Yes,
so.
I agree. Drew Brees, he does have a broken rib.
I'm glad you brought. I wasn't going to bring that up.
Well, I'm going to bring it up on the show.
I was going to let
I brought
you skate.
it up beforehand.
Wait, did you guys have a Breeze insider?
Yeah, no. I was woke on him. I thought his shoulder was hurt, and then Sean Payton further broke Drew Brees' lung to really stick it to me. To make me look like an asshole.
It was one of those things that
fucked up move
it was a
by
take
him.
that Big Cat thought sounded
We
right
already
at the
talked
time,
about it, though.
and I do those all the time,
Yeah.
so I'm not in any position to judge. But at the time, I was like, I think he might be over the skis on this one.
His shoulder's still hurt.
He was
his
pro
shoulder's
football
still
doc.
hurt.
Yeah.
His shoulder's still hurt. All right, let's talk
By the
NBA.
way, no, I'm going to interrupt you here, though, because I love that there's certain guys, and I'm not even criticizing it, but there are guys that are like the quickest to go, something's wrong with this dude. Like all the time. So I feel like I'm the anti, like how do you know just by watching a guy that you think he's hurt all the time? Like it happens in basketball all the time. You're like, oh, something's wrong with this guy. And then you'll call and be like, no, he's fine. He just missed a million shots. And then he's not hurt.
We call that. So Russell Wilson has gotten into that territory now. It's the Steph Curry territory where Steph Curry is so beloved that if he has a bad game, everyone's like, well, his ankle must be hurt. Russ Wilson, when he's starting to play bad, everyone's like, well, is something wrong with him?
You did it though. You said it's something wrong with him.
No, I know that's a joke.
Because,
I know nothing.
Right.
He just kind of sucks right now, or he hasn't.
Well,
been
I don't
playing
think.
as well.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with his defense. We had Dilfer on Monday, and I go, "What do you see?" And he goes, "He just knows he has to chuck it up all the time because that defense is so bad." So, all right, now I see what you're doing. I'm on to it. By the way, you said recurring guest, long time. It's almost controversially long.
How long has it been? Like a year?
Over
a year?
Well,
I don't know about that.
You had some
I'm not
remarks,
sure if it's
when you said that thing. You said Big Ben's no longer elite, and we were like, "What the fuck, dude? You're off the show."
Did Big Ben beat COVID, by the way? Did that
Yeah,
go under the radar?
He low-key had COVID, so he came into work one day and he was like, "Yo, I think I heard somebody sneeze at the gym yesterday."
The low.
Yeah, on the low.
He literally is Ricky Bobby.
He just didn't want to practice.
Yeah, he's Ricky Bobby getting stabbed in the leg when he pretends that he's paralyzed, and then being like, "Dude, you're not hurt." He's like, "No, I am. I'm really hurt." Tomlin even
If there were
said,
if there were ever an athlete that's like, you guys don't have home self-test kits?
Yeah.
You're like, what? Be like, yeah, I have my own kit. It's a Q-tip and some candle wax. And he's like, I tested positive, but I'm good.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
All right, NBA draft. So, does this draft suck, or is it that we didn't have March Madness and the top picks are a guy who played in Australia, a guy who played for a shitty Georgia team, a guy who got suspended from Memphis, and ain't no stopping Obi Toppin, and an Israeli dude? Which one is it?
That's right. You're on it, the Israeli dude.
Yeah.
It's a bad draft at the top, and it may be historically bad. And, I know the closer we get to this, it happens every year where it'll be a bad draft. And I remember a GM telling me this a long time ago. He goes, drafts are like spring weddings where the closer you get to it, the more you're like, this is actually going to be awesome, where the entire time leading up to it, you're like kind of dreading, is the weather going to be good? I don't know. I mean, I'm not big in the wedding game, so I didn't fully understand the analogy, but I got the point that the closer you get to every single draft, the more and more people start to talk themselves into it. So this has become it's not great at the top, but there's a ton of depth. There's a ton of players all over the place. And I really think if you look at it historically, those picks, and you're seeing GMs just give these things away now, but the picks, late first, 20 on, if you get a rotation guy, that's a huge hit. There's so many misses. So maybe it ends up being a better draft because there's more depth and there's some guys that make rotations and end up getting the second, third contracts, which is really a lot for somebody that's outside of the lottery. Like, that's a huge win, as much as you kind of want to fall in love with your guy that's picked at 22. But at the top, you always hope every year there's maybe one or two guys that can really impact a franchise. And I'm not saying the handful of players that are in the league now that truly alter who you are as a team, because there's not that many of those guys. There's not 10 players in the league that completely change who you are as a team, and there's certainly not even close to as many as we think there are in the draft. But this one has a chance to have zero. I can talk myself in and out of every one at the top. I like Wiseman. I've seen him play 3 games in college.
Yeah.
Okay, that's ridiculous that I like him this much. But I like him this much in comparison to everybody else. LaMelo, I can see it. 6'7", 6'8", sees the floor, really athletic, great handle. But when I watch the 12 games that he played in the Australian League, it's impressive / gross all the time because of his approach to the game. And then even Anthony Edwards, who we understand physically how impressive he is. You're like, okay, so what did he do? He took 8 threes a game for a team that lost all the time and didn't make any of them?
So I want to actually ask a question about that, because this might make me like a hot take old guy, but how much do you put into being on, like, not being able to win at college? Like Anthony Edwards, like Ben Simmons, the LSU team didn't go to the tournament. Markelle Fultz, that Washington team was bad. Is it wrong of me to be like, yo, dude, if you're like the number 1 pick or, number 1, number 2, you should be good enough to win some more games in the SEC? Or is that unfair?
It's part of it, but I still think it's unfair. I mean, think about Melo. When Melo came out, he was the ultimate winner. All right?
Wait, he still is. Check the fucking gold medals, dude.
You know what I want to hear one time is when a guy's up for the Hall of Fame, they're like silver medalist. Because my long-standing, like, the sooner you have to mention somebody won a gold medal in the Olympics, their argument to make the Hall of Fame, the worse their chances are of getting the Hall of Fame, except for the part where everybody gets into the Basketball Hall of Fame. So it's not great, but like the Ben Simmons stuff I thought was always kind of weird because he was lazy, right? And it's not that he was lazy. That team was a mess. They had like 4 guys that all thought they were the number 1 option. I don't know that the coach was that great all the time. And here he was supposedly lazy, and he was double digits rebounds in SEC play. So if you're lazy, you're not going to rebound like that. So the Edwards part is, like, I'm more worried about his shooting. I think the weirdest thing, if you wanted to go old guy, is because of Steph's shot range and what's an acceptable shot for him. The same thing with Lillard, Harden, even Trae Young. He makes a lot of those, from far out enough. Like, he can keep taking them because he makes enough of them. There's this entire generation of younger players that have seen guys pull up from 30 feet transition, and they don't even care if it goes in. They just pull up.
Yeah.
I mean, LaMelo was 25% on 7 attempts per game in the 12 games he played in Australia.
Yeah.
20. I can't believe there wasn't a vet that beat him up in the locker room at halftime of one of these games. But I guess they were just all cool with it, and apparently he bought the team or was buying it. So that might have been part of it. But there's a whole movement now of young guys. Like, it used to be, you didn't matter if the last second shot went in. You just had to take it because that's what Kobe did. Now it's become, I'll just pull up from 30 because that's awesome. Be like, well, it doesn't go in. Be like, yeah, but it's pretty sweet.
It looks sick.
The next iteration is going to be a guy who can draw fouls like James Harden, but absolutely sucks at free throws, but gets to the line like 40 times a game. Mm-hmm. With LaMelo, isn't it a little strange to you that LeVar Ball has just been completely silent for what seems like the last year and a half? Where is he? Is he tied up in a basement somewhere? What's going on with that?
I think he's trying to get those big baller brand orders out that haven't been fulfilled.
He's in a warehouse?
Yeah.
That's been tough.
He's like, we're out of 8.5s again. You know what? I actually think part of it is he probably crossed the line at a couple things that he said were, for today's climate, like, some people probably didn't want to book him. I also know, at least from the ESPN experience, he was becoming a bigger and bigger pain in the ass for the stuff he was asking for. Like, he would call up and be like, I want this car. And then it was like, no, I want this car. And they'd get him that car. And then it's like, now I want milk and cookies. I heard a story about a milk and cookies request where they're like, all right, fuck off. Like, give me a break.
I would give him the milk and cookies. That's the only thing I would offer him to come back on part.
Did he not get pitched to you guys? He got pitched to me recently.
He got pitched to us as soon as ESPN stopped having him on.
And we were kind of, I don't think he liked us.
No.
I think we just kept on calling him.
I don't think he likes anybody, really.
We kept on calling him a small baller. All right, so Anthony Edwards, I don't actually put that much stock into, like, your college team suck. That's more of a old guy. So here's the other old guy thing.
By the way, Washington's a great call because all they end up with all these 5 stars, guys that go in the front, and they suck all the time. I watched them all. They have 2 guys that are first rounders again, and Jaden's a 5-star kid, 6'9" perimeter player, and then you watch him and you're like, what happens to you when you go to Washington?
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's the weird camera angle that always fucks me up. No, seriously, that's the weirdest camera angle in all of sports. The Washington
There's some weird
basketball.
Pac-12 angles. I'll give you that. Yeah.
They have a weird one in football too. So here's the other old guy take or trying to figure this out. How much stock do you put into the difference between a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old? Because I love this, like Obi Toppin, he's old. He's 22. And then, who's the Florida State kid? Williams, right?
Patrick Williams,
Patrick Williams, who probably would be a bull. He just turned 19 in August. So he's got to go up the boards because he just turned 19. Do you really fall into, like, what month you were born matters that much?
I do. There's just enough information that backs it up that, I remember like the old Dick Vitale on draft night when he was still on the draft, he would get super mad when like Keith Bogans doesn't go higher because Keith Bogans had been around for a while. And like Keith Bogans is a bad example for my point, but like he stuck around for a little while, was a nice player. But it's like whenever anybody would get drafted that was older and then produced, people would say, what's wrong with just taking a guy that was around for a bunch of years and now you know exactly what you're getting. But based on projections and the rate of like, if you're this young, the expected improvement, it's really not even debatable. Like, yes, there are exceptions, and that's what I hate when people argue the exceptions. But the younger you are as a prospect, and this league is, especially in the draft, it's so hard. We've been over this a million times. It's so hard in free agency. It's so hard with trades. That's why you'll see teams go like, yeah, maybe I could take the 21 or 22-year-older and maybe he makes my 7th or 8th slot in the rotation and maybe I know exactly what I get. But it's so hard to add any next-level talent. I'll take the younger guy and hope it works out. Yes, there are tons of busts all over the place, but if you look at it historically, the better players end up becoming the guys that are drafted when they're younger. And I remember one time Stern got super pissed, which is rare, when he was being interviewed after the playoffs. And I think it was an international reporter. It was like, what would you say about the product with all these high school kids out there running around? He's like, what, like Garnett, Kobe, LeBron, like on and on and on. And basically Stern just totally owned him by naming 10 guys that were the best players in the league.
So Ryan, how young is too young for you?
15's young.
Yeah.
So you're saying 16 is okay?
Yeah, big guys 15 maybe, but outside perimeter players, yeah, that's
so you're into 16-year-olds. That's not why you're laughing.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, a lot of times you got to worry about the international rights, which is always a problem.
Or child trafficking, yeah.
True. Yep.
That could be an issue.
Yeah. But then you'll ask, like, I heard the new Taken was going to be Taken for point guards.
Okay.
Yes.
Wouldn't there be a difference between taking like an older guy who is like a 4 or a 5 as opposed to a younger guy who like plays a different position? Like, is there any different expected rate of improvement by position that you play?
Are we back on the draft? Sort of.
Kind of.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about
float back.
I'm talking about basketball players.
Look, I just knowing how teams like when Giannis was drafted. Okay, when you watched Giannis from the international video that you had, it was like, okay, he's pretty athletic and it's cool and all, but it looks like he was beating the shit out of junior high kids.
Yeah,
it was the gym sucked. I think there was one game I watched where there were no seats. And you're like, I can't believe this guy's going to be in the draft, and like, I don't know what to do with him. There's another kid named Pokashevsky who's like 7'1". I think he weighs like 115, which is definitely thin. And he's playing in these games that are horrible. But with Giannis, when you'd ask Milwaukee, you'd be like, what did you see? And they go, it's a 15th pick. Like, we could have taken somebody who was in college for a few years and known exactly what we were going to get, but we just figured, you know what, we'll see what happens. And it worked out. And I love the fact that the guys that took him, then it was John Hammond, who was with Orlando now, is they weren't patting themselves on the back. Like, they did a good job. They scouted him. They were like, okay, we're on this. But they still were, they didn't expect this. And I can't imagine what they saw in some of the video, because of the video that I had. And granted, they went to see him in person and that kind of stuff. I'm okay with teams totally screwing it up for the high ceiling guy as opposed to taking something that you absolutely know, because this league is so hard to add talent.
So you bring up Giannis. Let's go off the draft for a second. Are the Bucks just doing the thing that the Cavs did, where they're trying to build for the future for Giannis, being like, hey, we put a contender around you, and then Giannis is still going to leave in a year and a half, and then they basically mortgage their entire future to try to get a guy to stay for no reason?
What the Bucks are doing is apparently what everybody's doing now. Like I've said at the top, like, I thought the first round picks late were a little overrated. But it's just exciting. It's exciting when it's your favorite team and it's draft night. And you're like, oh, man, we got this guy at 24. Be like, what did he do? Oh, he transferred to Virginia Tech. Oh, I love him. He's super athletic. And then he's gone. They don't even pick up his third-year option. But now, I think because teams have kind of figured out those picks don't mean a ton, now they're just handing them out. And when you look at the Bucks and say, wait, in 2027, part of that Drew Holiday deal is a 2027 unprotected pick, that to me is insane / irresponsible. I mean, it's sports. How many times have you thought you knew exactly who like the next team was going to be for the next 5 years, and then all of a sudden you go, wait, what happened? Remember when they were the new thing? I mean, it happens in every single sport. But with basketball, to think here we are seven drafts from now, there's this pick that's completely unprotected. That pick by itself could somehow end up being worth what Drew Holiday is, except there's, 2 other picks that are unprotected and then 2 other swaps. So they clearly went all in with Giannis, and I know I sound naive, and I'm not, because clearly keeping Giannis is the most important thing. But what would be wrong with Giannis going, hey, I actually do want to stay, so don't give up 5 firsts for a guy that you have 1 year of control of?
Right. It feels like they're doing the desperation thing when you just sit down, and I've heard you talk about this before, and LeBron kind of did this to the Cavs, where he left them in limbo and left them being like, well, we don't really know what to plan for here, because LeBron could leave, he could stay, he could leave. It's weird that no teams just sit down and like, hey, Giannis, are you leaving or are you staying? And if you're staying,
we're gonna
what
trade,
do you want us to do? Right.
We're going to trade 5 firsts to convince you, or we could just talk about it.
Right.
Now, LeBron would never talk to anybody about it ever. I mean, if you are management and you think LeBron's going to tell you anything, he is on his own, and he will gladly let you trade for $1 million contracts, and then he will bounce. And you know what? It has worked out for LeBron, so I'm not even knocking him for it. But this league has become the opposite of any kind of collaboration whatsoever. And so you have a ton of GMs, especially now with so few sellers. You have a lot of GMs overpaying because of the seller-buyer ratio and the fact that so many guys are operating in fear. Like I was surprised that people knocked Phoenix for giving up as much as they did. And I'm like, well, first of all, they got off of Rubio's money. They get Chris Paul. And if you're a stale franchise, like, it's different for every franchise. If you're a team like Phoenix where you're like, okay, we've got Booker and Ayton, and those guys might be really good, but the longer we go not making the playoffs, one of them might get pissed off, and maybe it'll be Booker, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago. And then you're like, all right, well, do we really, like, if we get Chris Paul, all of a sudden we matter in a way we haven't mattered in years. So let's just go ahead and do it. So that one kind of makes more sense. But I really, for some of these organizations that have this gun to their head to overpay for all this stuff, when all they had to do was like kind of be more on the same page with the guy's decision, like a Giannis. It just, like, if I were Giannis, I'd be like, wait, so what happens if 3 years we don't have any picks to trade and I re-signed? But you got rid of all the picks, and now we have less things, like a trade deadline. We can't move a first for somebody because we gave them away through 2027. I don't understand why people think this is like normal.
If the idea was to make these trades to keep Giannis long term, it actually is counterintuitive. Giannis should not stay now long term in Milwaukee. He should be happy that they're trying to win right now, but long term he should be like, no, wait, we don't have any assets.
So
left.
It could have just been like, almost from a PR standpoint, the team shows that they're willing to make this big move,
which they did with LeBron,
knowing that Giannis might leave at the end of his contract, and then they're like, look, we did everything that we could to keep him around. We even tried to make our alternate jerseys look like the Miami Heat jersey, so he would feel like he was playing in Florida.
Built a whole new stadium for Giannis.
Yeah, we built it on the water, so he thought, we tricked him and told him it was the Atlantic Ocean. I could see it being like a PR move. But I had a question for you about James Wiseman, because I think you and I have the same take about James Wiseman, even though you know a lot more about basketball than I do, which is he looks awesome when he dunks. He looked just, when he was playing in those 3 games, his dunks were like, that's a dude that could be dunking on people that are at least 6 inches taller than they are on that same court. And then obviously he could be in position to be picked by the Warriors. But do you think that the Warriors are even going to take Wiseman, or do you think that he's going to be put on the move?
I don't know that the trades that like Minnesota's pick was apparently available, Golden State's was apparently available, and I think a lot of us from the outside will always say, oh, why don't they just trade the pick? You're like, okay, for who and what and who's available? Like Bradley Beal, I don't know that number 1 in a bad draft gets it done for Bradley Beal, and then you have to worry about, is Bradley Beal, because that's the other part. So we could sit here and name guys. It's like, okay, but if you trade for somebody who then is immediately going to go, I don't want to be here, then you're just inheriting somebody else's problem. But Wiseman, the thing I like about him is, yes, the size and all that stuff. He catches everything. So at his worst, if he's this big guy that can stay on the floor at the end of games, which is what you need now, especially out west, and if you were Golden State, I would think it would almost make sense roster-wise, but it's still asking a lot of a kid who played 3 games at Memphis to be closing playoff games in the Western Conference. But the league got small, and then it got big again. I mean, you have to figure out a way to deal with Anthony Davis and that size, and LeBron, who basically is bigger than every other wing. Like, it's a real problem, and it was basically hopeless, I thought, for the Miami Heat with the way they were built. Even with those injuries, I didn't really think they had enough on that front line. But Wiseman also has another level that I don't know if he's going to get to, but he'll show it with his handle. He'll show a really soft touch where he almost has some of these offensive small forward skills that you start to get really, really excited about. The downside of it is there'll be moments where you can see it's not natural. Like, he'll have the ball and then he'll think through all the different things he could potentially do. It's almost like a slow download speed. And you're like, all right. So I've caught myself probably too many times. Like, Stromile Swift is my all-timer. I was like, this guy's going to be nasty. And then you're like, well, the dunks are nasty, but he's not great at the basketball part of this. And it doesn't really work out. Tyrus Thomas, Big Cat knows.
Jumps through the fucking roof.
And then he could bring the ball up at LSU. Like, he started showing all these perimeter skills. You go, oh my God. And people loved him. Like, he was a late riser, and it was just like, look, he's got perimeter skills, and he's this insane. He's like a tier 1 NBA athlete as soon as he's in the league. But I try to catch myself and go, okay, but how good is he at basketball? Like, is he good at the basketball part? Like, Patrick Williams at Florida State, he looks incredible until you watch him dribble or shoot, which are big deals. Yeah. So maybe somebody figures it out, and that's why this still is so hard. So, like any of these guys at the top, if we were sitting here in 5 years going, hey, Wiseman's the 10th guy on a team and he never figured it out, I'm not going to be shocked by that either. And that's why the top of this is different. Where Zion comes in, the only thing that was ever going to hold Zion back is his own conditioning and health. Because if Zion's healthy, he's going to dominate in this league. It was so much more obvious, a guy like that compared to anyone here at the top.
Yeah.
See, Wiseman should just get fat. He should intentionally get fat. I've been
Yes.
arguing for a while, like, we need a dude with a big, like, Shaq-esque body to just eat up space and back people down, because you don't have to be as good at basketball if you're 7'1" and 300 pounds. So
Do you miss post play? Is that what you're saying?
I miss post play. I miss the '90s days, back when you had guys like Hakeem Olajuwon that knew how to do a sky hook and knew how to use a pivot foot. Nowadays, it's just all 3-pointers and dunks. Not for me.
Sad.
I'm a terrific post player. Terrific. I'll put that up against anybody. But then yesterday, I was telling Big Cat, some guys were like hitting on me at hoops, trying to ask me to play with them. It was weird.
Because you were backing them down too hard.
Yeah,
you were sending the wrong signals.
No.
Team
They just
player.
They saw me shooting around a little bit, and I was trying to be COVID safe, so I didn't really want to play pickup with anybody anyway. But I just wanted to get some shots up, get a little sweat in, and I think they were high as fuck because they reeked. But I think one guy was playing in sandals, but he was really nice. But then they were asking me how much I weighed, and they had a bet on it, which I thought was kind of cool and complimentary, And so I was like, I don't know what to tell you. So I told them my weight, and they got excited. And then it just immediately went into, hey, do you guys want to join? Do you want to join my buddies and I on a text thread, and we can pick? And I was like, no, I actually don't want to give you my cell phone number. I'll just be around.
You basically just met the West Coast Billy Football, because that's something Billy Football would absolutely say. Like, yo, dude, how much you weigh? Like, I'm looking at you right now. You're looking pretty solid. I don't know.
What's up with Billy Football's arms? I thought he used to have big arms.
It's a good question, Ryan. So he joined
Great
a team.
question. He doesn't have headphones.
He joined
on
a
right now.
Jenga team, and then he cut his sleeves off, and then he chose the only guy in the office that has bigger arms than him. So now he looks like he's got little earthworms hanging from his shoulders.
Billy hasn't done curls in days. It's bad. He asked, "What's up with your arms, Billy?"
Tell him. Russillo, I'll bench you 100%. How much are you benching nowadays?
Once you get out of high school, you don't max a ton.
I know. I'm out of college. I still don't max some, but I know I can bench more than you.
You probably can, man. I don't know. What do you max?
Well, right now I'm probably hovering around like 285.
Max?
It's not a lot to brag about.
That was
Fucking
How
put the
much are you
microphone
benching?
down.
How much are you benching?
I put up 315 3 times today, fucking around. Just don't. Get back to me in a couple years.
You're probably a short arm guy.
That's man strength. No, that's
I'm not a
man
short arm guy. I
think you're a
don't know if
short
you
arm
caught
guy.
this. No, I don't.
What's
You
your
must have missed the
wingspan?
part, but my post thing.
Wait.
Like 6'6". It's stupid.
Oh.
It's fucking
The
silly.
funny
how-
thing is, I'm sure that Ryan actually knows exactly what his wingspan is.
Yes. No,
He's got
6'6".
He's got a
Stupid.
spider chart on his wall.
That's in the draft notes.
Yeah.
Ryen Russillo, 6'6" wingspan. It's stupid.
Silly strong.
I can't believe
Anyway.
you're at 285.
Yeah,
and
that-
you went
I
to brag
squatted.
about.
I
That's
squatted.
embarrassing,
My
Bill.
Oh,
squat
we're
was my
doing
best.
squat numbers now?
Yeah, my squat
okay.
was my best lift.
Go
Okay.
ahead, say your squat
What's your
numbers.
squat
'cause I bet you,
Squatted over 440.
Okay.
That's great, man.
Some
Talk to
people
me
are-
when you're 45.
Okay.
dude.
Anyway.
285.
Also,
I didn't know what type of
nothing.
bench he was, like bench guy he was.
No, but 285. Like, don't go around.
Okay, no, that's what it is now. Like,
but
I'm
Billy,
not like
Billy, hold on.
You were
maxing
so
out.
confident. I assumed you were going
Yeah.
to say like 365 or something like
If
that.
you don't have
Billy,
at
All
least
right,
3
fine.
plates
You got
on,
it.
then you can't come at
Billy,
somebody
when
with
you
that.
go out in public, you represent us, and you're telling people that you bench 285. That's embarrassing, dude.
Well, now, I mean, I'm not like I dropped. Like, you guys made fun of me for being fat, so I don't like. my body weight's lower.
So
Oh,
you got
you're
in
doing
worse
worse.
shape.
So
it's
when
that.
I was like
That was your
when
response
I
to
was
it?
like 240, like I was benching way more, but then everyone was like,
Oh.
"Oh, belly football." So I was like, "Oh fuck, I gotta drop weight
Billy,
now."
I'll be honest with you. I don't care how fat you are. If you can throw up 3 plates, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I've been in the past.
I'm
able to.
I'm disappointed with that. Also,
Spiraling?
and Ryan just being like, I was fucking around this morning and threw up 315. Like he wasn't even benching seriously.
Dude, he was warming up.
He was just having a laugh.
Anyway, love to live with you.
Billy,
sometime.
by the way, don't let them. It's clearly they're getting in your head. Don't worry about the big thing
they're
at
my
all, man.
boss.
Big is in. Yeah, well, but this is a different work dynamic. I think we can all agree on
Yes.
that. And by the way, when Big Cat says you represent us, Van Pelt said that to me one night and scolded the shit out of me, and it sucked to hear, but it also wasn't a lie.
Yeah.
And then later on,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, but later on, you become your own person. You go, I don't want to hear that.
Well, what did you do to have him say that?
He benched 275.
285.
No, I told
I'm around
somebody to
285
fuck
right now.
off.
I don't think. Well, I
and
haven't done it in a long time. I could maybe hit 300.
Yeah, I know. The excuses are coming
Wait,
out.
Ryan, what'd you say?
Yeah, but-
you told somebody to fuck off?
I told somebody to fuck off one night, and he didn't really love it. So whatever, it was a long story. But you know what? He was fair. It was fair. It was stern, but it was fair. But yeah, Billy, seriously, man, you do have long arms. Your arms from this angle look better. I'm trying to build you up a little bit,
Oh,
but you
thank you,
can't.
thank you.
If you can't put up 315 right now, you shouldn't start like stepping to other guys about max bench.
I know.
Billy's.
You know, that's
You
a
already
good-
knew this. You already knew this.
I know.
You're suspended
Billy's
from cardio, Billy.
Billy's an I love you guy, Ryan. I don't know you.
I
you
like
probably-
Billy.
You probably had those guys in at ESPN. So Dion once told us it was a very apt thing, like about the locker room dynamic. He's like, there's at least 2 guys in every locker room that's an I love you guy, where you have to check in with him and be like, hey man, I love you, like straight up, I love you, just so that they don't go crazy. That's Billy.
No, that's. I'm not an I love you guy by any means.
Sounds like you're being
Antonio
kind of an I
Brown,
love- yeah.
Tom Brady
not
literally
a-
is
don't
making
you-
love to Antonio Brown to keep him like playing football, living him in his house. He's the ultimate I love you guy. You too.
This
Billy.
is awesome because every time it sounds like Big Cat's going to compliment Billy, it's
No.
not.
no,
Yeah.
that's,
I mean,
that's the
you know,
whole. And then every now and then,
I might be a podcasting I love you guy now that I think about it.
yeah, you are. I love you,
different-
dude. No,
different-
Billy. No, for real
The
though.
podcaster world, I mean.
Yo, Hank, cut this
damn.
part. Cut this part. I love you, dude.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I love you for real.
Anyway.
I do like Billy though. I do. We
What's
we
crazy
didn't.
Ryan,
is
you
that-
actually had a big influence on me when I was 18 and we came to ESPN.
He doesn't want to hear that though, Billy, because now he's like the
No,
kid
it's
that-
a compliment.
the
I was
kid
like,
that-
that's,
the
like,
kid
really
that I looked
cool.
up to
Wait,
can only bench 285.
Time out. What was the big influence?
Well, I just like we went to his show and it was like really like big for me. I was like it was like it was so cool to see like what was going on. It was like a big moment in my life.
Okay, but you're leaving out a very important part. You didn't know who I was
I,
at all.
look, I was 18, like, you know, I don't listen to the radio. I was 18, but now I'm like, I got into that world and I was like, wow, like, you know, like podcasting is a gateway drug to radio.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
this is
exactly
what
what
is
it
it?
is.
Best in Show, and it's like Sting or no, Zoolander. Sting is one of my heroes. I don't really listen to him.
I was like, wow, this guy's really cool. I want to be like this guy. When did you break
That's-
315? When did you like really start like? When did your bench like?
Hey, I'm gonna.
really
All
start
right,
maxing?
look. Understand?
How
I was
old were you when your bench
absolutely.
was-
I'm gonna tell you the story right now.
Perfect.
Keep this in. I can't believe we ended up on this, but whatever. It's pretty predictable. I was skinny. Okay, like, and that's why I always think it's ridiculous that, like, if you call somebody fat, that's like, hey, you shouldn't do that to fat people. It's like, well, where were the skinny rights? Where were the skinny people rights? Like, no one ever thought about skinny people. And I ended up having to go to like a specialist at some point. I was so skinny. And that's also another thing that's happened where there's still guys in college. In college, I started to fill out a little bit, like 185, 190 towards the end. But my friends get so mad when everybody thinks I'm like this epic tough guy now because I'm big and I don't smile, which is probably just all because I don't have hair. And it's all sort of some way to compensate. It's some connection. But like one guy in an email thread got super mad when somebody was talking about how tough I was. He's like, I'm so fucking sick of hearing about this. Like, you were nothing in college. And I'm like, I'm not saying it. I'm admitting it. Like, you know, none of us. We went to Vermont. No one ever kicked any of our asses. It didn't matter because there was no one there. So the point is that I got sick of that to the point where I was like, all right, this is it. And I filled out at like 26. And then for whatever reason, there was one day, and I'll never forget, Boston Sports Club, Watertown. I put on 225, which I can only do a few times. And then I asked a guy for a spot, and I did it 13 times. And the guy thought I was messing with him because I was like, hey, can I get a spot? He's like, how many? I was like, we'll just see how it goes. I'm like, hopefully a few good ones. And I don't know. It was like some magic trick where it just all came together. So for the people out there that don't have that strength right now, you know, sometimes everybody's late. I was a super late bloomer, and then for whatever reason, like right at 28, it was when all my man strength happened, and then it was just, you know, off the charts. Now I'm hurt all the time, but that's just because I don't want to lose anything.
So it was just that one day, or from that point on, you like unlocked a new
from that
level
point
of
on,
your body?
It was so weird. From that point on, it was never the same. It wasn't like the next time it was a fluke. I couldn't. It's so weird. And I'll never forget the guy looked at me like, what, are you fucking with me? Like, you needed a spot? Because I was just like, no, don't touch it. And I was like, oh, my God. You know, it was like the end of some 80s movie where you're just awesome all of a sudden.
So right now, Billy's too polite to be asking this question, but I can see the wheels turning in his head.
Yep.
Billy wants to ask you what type of steroids you took before you hit the gym that day. He's not going to ask it, so I'll
Show
ask
us
it
your
for him.
nipples,
Where,
Ryan.
where did
Show
it
us your
correlate?
nipples.
Was there any correlation with the hair loss?
No. You know what? It started coming out in 01 and was the first time a buddy did like there was a weird angle at a house party, and he was like, you know, he was one of those guys, his hair was thinning. I was at that point the young guy in the group. I was always the young guy in the group, and then I magically became the old guy in the group, which happens, I guess. But he was like, whoa, Russillo, hold on. And I'm like, what? Like, what did I do? And it was right in front of everybody at the party. And like, he had me sit down at a bar stool, like by the kitchen island, and started examining it from up top. It was like, dude, you're going to go bald. Oh. And I was just like, no, I'm not. And I remember there was a hairdresser that I would go to, and I was like, hey, sometimes I feel like it's fallen out. Like, what's going on back there? She's like, you're good. She's like, you just have really thin hair. It's not a big deal. And then the girl I was seeing at the time was already like kind of prospecting a bit, like a gold mine. She's like, what do you think you would do if you did? Like, you'd probably get it fixed, right? You'd probably get plugs or something. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And then for whatever reason, I didn't. I tried to get Propecia from a doctor in Boston, and it was like the best combo ever. I was like, hey, my shoulder's kind of messed up. I'd like to start training differently, and I also like Propecia. He was like, no and no. And then I lost all my hair.
Have you thought about becoming the wig guy?
Yeah, toupee. I would love to have a toupee.
I just can't believe there's never been a pro wig phase ever, right?
Right.
How come there hasn't been like, you know, hey, remember when wigs were in the late 90s? How come that hasn't
change
ever
that,
happened?
Ryan? Because I think everybody's waiting for someone brave enough to be the first guy to do it.
I want to do it. I want to go bald so I can have a toupee and like dare people
Don't say that.
to bring it up. No, seriously, I want people to be like, yo, you got a toupee. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? This is all real.
Ryan, what if you showed up
Put it
with
on
just like,
backwards?
Yeah,
but-
like I want to
yeah.
dare people to say, like, go ahead, say something, dude. Say something about my toupee. I know you're looking
Have
at
you
it.
ever called somebody out for a toupee? Because I'm bad
Self.
at noticing them.
Yeah.
No, but low
Carl
key,
Ravitch?
Yeah, Carl Ravitch, Bill Self.
low key, the bald guys nowadays, like they give off low key like Johnny Sins vibes, which is totally another vibe. So like Russillo kind of has that vibe.
All right, Billy. That's
Yeah,
enough
it's-
from
it's-
Billy.
we're done. We're
That
done
was-
here,
he
Billy.
did-
It's
yeah.
I've
a
never
whole
taken
nother-
steroids, by the way, Billy. Billy, you don't have to take steroids.
Don't
I
take
never did.
steroids.
So
Do you
just-
want to be on his podcast, by the way?
Yeah, I like Billy.
Yeah, Billy's podcast is literally Who's Taking Steroids. That's the name of the podcast. And you just guess who's taking steroids. And it comes out every day.
He looks at the most recent shirtless pictures of guys, like athletes that came out, and he examines the nipples.
Yeah,
Hey,
no,
Billy's onto something though,
cone-shaped.
because the next asshole that goes how I got ripped during the pandemic, and it's like on Hollywood Reporter and Men's Health and all this stuff, and you're like, you just did a fucking cycle.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a bad thing. Like, oh, which Avenger got ripped in the last 2 weeks, and you just like, you know what? It's totally unfair to the rest of us that are all natural, and it's just playing the guys like Billy. It's in his head constantly.
Right.
He doesn't need to be looking at Hawkeye's lats.
Yeah. He's standing up for you, Billy.
Who's that guy recently who got ripped? Oh, never mind.
Ronnie Coleman.
No, never mind.
Mike Tyson.
I sent I sent a picture of Mike Tyson to Billy last night. I was like, check out his nips. Let me know what you see. And he's like, well, he did steroids back in the 90s. So.
Well, he's always talking about how
Yeah.
steroids don't make boxers good, and it's all skill. He's like, yeah, no, steroids couldn't make you good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it makes you get in really good shape pretty quickly if you're about to fight.
Yes. All right. Well, how do we get back to the draft?
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
R.J. Hampton, our former player.
Oh, yeah.
Of the New Zealand Breakers.
Yes.
On
So-
the Ryen Russillo
Are you guys no longer
podcast.
investors?
No, we
we are.
still do co-own the team with
Yeah.
a lot of other people. Sean Marion, one of them, amongst others.
Mm-hmm.
But R.J. Hampton, he was going to be a lottery pick going into this year. I saw some mocks that had him like between 10 and 20, anywhere in that span. Where do you see him?
Yeah, that's about right. I think 10 is probably the earliest you could go. Maybe Tyrell Terry is somebody he's competing with because they're both guards that are probably completely different types of players. RJ is the best athlete in the draft. Maybe some would say it's Anthony Edwards because Edwards is bigger and very athletic and all that kind of stuff. But RJ, like, I never would worry about him being out of shape. His high school numbers are insane. He reclassified so he could go out earlier. You know, I got to talk to him. He told us on the pod, he's like, you know what, I was going to go to Kansas, which I thought was pretty interesting because he caught a ton of heat from Duke fans. I think Duke fans got more mad about it than anybody else. If we were doing a seeding of 64 types of people, would a one seed be adult who goes after recruits on Facebook when they turn down their school?
I think
a one seed?
That's a strong 2 seed. I think for me, the number 1 seed is always going to be adult male autograph seekers.
That and then that's
Ooh,
that's
good one.
definitely
That's really
The guys
good.
that come with like the luggage, and then sometimes they'll make kids run up to the
Yep.
players and try to get the autographs for them.
That's 1 seed in the East. I think 1 seed in the Midwest is dude who updates his team's record in his Twitter bio or the Twitter handle, unironically.
That's almost.
It's
Hey,
kinda
I'm telling
cool,
you, if you have a team's record in your handle, or the more emojis, the worse the content. It really is amazing. You're like, oh, Aries, moon, fire, thumbs up, and be like, okay, you're on top of every piece of breaking news. Like, you always have stuff to say about that. Have you guys ever had to deal with autograph seekers, or is it only selfies?
You've
one or
done
two
autographs,
but
but yeah.
it's almost all selfies, which are not bad because like you know that the person just wants a picture with you.
Right.
If it's an autograph seeker, which you see at the Super Bowl sometimes, and these guys are just like the slimiest weirdos. I don't know what hole they crawl out of, but they're just really strange guys that you absolutely know at some points did a bid for some weird shit. And they're just like sitting there with their stack of merchandise, sending their little minions out to run errands from like their Oliver Twist orphans. It just creeps me out.
Do you know what that's the cousin of now that it's popping in my head? That's cousin of dad who has his kid take a picture with the cheerleaders, which is clearly for him to look at later.
Yeah.
You see that happen and you're like, whoa, dude.
I'm sure they're one and the
What-
same.
Yeah, or the Hooters waitress. Like, hey, Tommy, go ahead, take a quick picture real quick. Like it's just a little 8-year-old with all these cheerleaders. And he's going home and he's looking at that picture. He hasn't figured out that
'cause-
Mr. Skin exists.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Like, I remember coming home sometimes when I was younger, and I turned the TV on and be like, why is Club MTV on?
Brooke,
What's going on?
what's her name? Brooke, whatever, with Wild on.
Wild on Tara Reid.
Brooke, yeah, but also Brooke something. Fuck.
Brooke Burke.
Brooke Burke.
Brooke
Yeah.
Burke.
Yep.
She was so
What about
legend.
What about
Yes.
guys that retweet porn onto the timeline? Mm-hmm. That like see like a 10-second clip of porn and
Yeah.
they're like, I gotta share this.
Or dudes who buy on their favorite porn stars' Amazon wish list. That's also
You'll never
I gotta
believe
tell
what
you,
I saw.
the-
It was some boobs. I need to let
The
everyone
porn
know.
catfishing right now on both Instagram and Twitter are out of control. They pick up around the holiday season.
Yep.
And as somebody who's been by himself for quite a while, I've had moments where I was like, all right, like if I get catfished right now, like, all right. And then I got one on Christmas from like a Russian bot, and I was like, on Christmas, you had to do this. But what I love when you'll see like, okay, who did I get followed by? Like, okay, this is like 7 different people here, and all the pictures are posted in the last 30 minutes. And then I'll see like they follow you and PFT, and then like Craig Kilborn will be followed or something like that. And then you'll see one of the dudes follow back. And I'm like, up, horny alert.
Yes.
There are a handful of guys that we work with here in the office that no matter what, if there is,
you can just say Glenny Balls.
If there's a girl that tweets at you and you go to her profile, they're always followed by one of
Instagram.
One of like
No,
2
there's a
people,
handful
but
of guys in the business.
And liked. Yeah, the Instagram hot chick. It's always Glenny Balls like this picture.
Yeah. Which I
They'll admit to it.
I actually think that it's less of a horny place for me. He just likes it. He's just like, cool.
I don't have a problem with that. I think there's times when you're like, this seems a tad sketchy that this guy that's a very important decision maker is following every weather girl in New Mexico.
That's true.
He's a gambler. He needs to know what it's going to look like on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm in talent. I'm in talent evaluation. You know.
Yeah.
It is the best part about our job, where everything is out in the open, and you can't really, like ESPN, if you caught SVP following a porn star, people are like, holy shit. It's like, I follow porn stars. People try to get me every now and then. I'm like, yeah, dude, I follow them. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have, there's no one can come at you guys with any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you just,
yeah,
oh,
I'm a guy.
busted.
Yeah.
It is
It's on brand.
It's kind of liberating to have a combination of like expectations be so very low, but also just like all our dirt's in the open.
Yeah.
Like you can't you
I
can't
follow Puma
blackmail
Swede.
us.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I used to like her 5 years ago. Whatever.
Who?
I still do.
Puma Swede.
Yeah, that was good, Ryan.
Yeah,
that
nice.
was good.
That
We
was so
worked on
smart.
that. Uh-huh.
I'm
Yeah.
not familiar. All right, wait. Ryan, my biggest question I have for you, is there any stopping Obi Toppin?
The only stop in Obi Toppin is himself, probably, right?
God, you fucked that up.
Father time.
Ain't no stopping Obi Toppin. How much do you put into a team needing to the blogger who covers them needing to sell T-shirts? How much you put that into draft stock? Because I really just want Obi Toppin on the Bulls so I can sell ain't no stopping Obi Toppin shirts.
You could probably still sell him. You could go RJ Hampton's dad, which I believe the story goes that whenever there was a chance he was going to sign with a team, his dad would show up with RJ Hampton on a T-shirt with that team's name on it and then sell him. So he's selling to like Duke and Memphis and Kansas. And that to me is not a red flag. That's a
Smart
hey,
guy.
all right.
Smart,
Like
yeah.
he's going to have some of that DNA and pick everything out. Obi beat on college kids. And yes, he's a little bit older, but the way he would post and destroy people and the transition dunks, like when you watch him in snippets, it's unbelievable. But he's somebody who I worry about a little bit of like, all right, how much of this transfers over to the NBA? And defensively, when you start to hear, oh, he was bored and he was just getting ready for the pros and all that kind of stuff, you're like, well, I would have liked to see him be less bored in some of these games. So he's all over the place. And that's kind of the story of the top of the draft. Like if you had me, I could do first take solo for a week, not a week. A week would be a long time, where I could be sitting in a different suit on either side, like trashing a guy or totally building a guy up. And that's just how wild the top of this is.
That actually sounds like a great show that I would watch.
So wait, all right. So then, give us your top 5. Give us your top 5, like just straight list them.
All right. Well, let me pull up my files here.
Now,
you're a GM.
now, Ryan, this is different from a mock draft, right?
Yes, correct.
No,
This
I know.
is-
No. I know.
Yeah.
So you can't ever be fact checked on this because this is just your big board. Your best
It's
player
not like,
available.
oh, the T-Wolves are going to do this. It's literally if you had 1 through 5, how would you
Yeah.
rank them?
By the way, when we put this clip out, have it
Mock
on the
draft.
screen.
Have it be
Ryan
a
Russillo's mock draft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
T-Wolves
you know what I
take
So
you're bet-
James
yeah.
Wiseman.
BPA.
How does
Best
that
pla-
make
I should
sense
just
with
player
you?
available,
I should
Ryan.
just do something
Yeah.
different. All right, you know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to give you my top 4, and then my 5th one is going to be no one else's top 5, and I'm just going to say him because I like him that much, and I kind of can't understand why not. All right?
Hipster.
All right, so it's
Like
Wiseman, it's Edwards, it's Halliburton, and I'm going to put LaMelo in there just because of the ceiling and the chance that this could actually work out. I think Okongwu should be mentioned with this group. I do like Denny. I love Kyra Lewis from Alabama.
Okay. So he's number 5.
I'm going to put him 5 just to be so we, in a few years, if I kill it with this, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Russillo called that. And if more often than not, it'll get forgotten whether or not it works out.
Don't ever bring it up. Yeah.
No, I mean, let's be honest. This interview, the biggest takeaway is that Billy benches 285. That's what everyone's going to remember.
Right now.
That's what we're talking about,
Benched
Billy.
over 300 before,
But
which is
Billy,
right now.
But you set the term limit as being right now when you asked Ryan how much he benches right now.
You could give us all your hot takes, and there's only one thing that's leading this interview.
I benched 285.
I know, and I was trying to avoid it. I was trying to
27.
avoid it, and then it's like, no.
It's embarrassing, Billy.
By
It's embarrassing that I
26, I'll
could bench
probably
as
be
much as
benching like 500. According
Yeah,
to Ryan.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
according to Ryan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan also likes
28,
him
28.
young, as we've discussed earlier.
All right, so wait, so James Wiseman number. All right, and then I also in current NBA, are you like is James Harden really going to go to the Nets? Is that the most hated team on paper of all time?
I love Durant. I wish he didn't like Kyrie, but even the people that like Durant were like, I hope it happens because he already, like, to me, he and Kyrie hit it off at some NBA weekends and then we're like, let's go do this. And I still can't wait. I almost don't want that to be disturbed to watch that also not work because Kyrie, it's so perfect. And the only people that stick up for him are the people that he hasn't played for.
Right.
So it's like, who knows it better? The people that were in. And I don't care that he left Boston. I care that he handled it as unprofessionally as you could have. And I'm not even talking about lying to an arena full of people before the season starts saying, hey, if you'll have me back. There's another way to do it besides, if you'll have me back, I'd love to stay here. But towards the end, he was like, Boston's actually done a really good job of not letting all the negative Kyrie stuff getting out because I think the Celtics franchise don't want to be seen as the guys that are just dumping on somebody being petty because then they don't want to make it be like, oh, that's how they treat their players after they leave. But if Harden were to go there, because there is so much anti-KD stuff because he went to the Warriors, even though I love him, that doesn't bother me as much. I get it. The Kyrie stuff we've already been over. And Harden, who, think about this, everything Houston did was because of you. They ran a style that made you one of the most prolific players in the history of this game. But I also think Houston's style is such, it's almost like the best Instagram filter. Maybe Billy can help us with this, but I don't know what it is. Is it Gingham? Where when you go play in Houston's system when it's Harden, you're 25% better. You just are. Like they spread. I mean, think about all the guys that are like, man, Austin Rivers is pretty good. Look at Daniel House. Like this guy's sick. Covington looks like a terrific player all of a sudden. I don't even know what Capella's going to look like not being with a guy like Harden. And so they go and get Chris Paul because Daryl Morey's trying anything he can. He's got this system. It's working, at least from a regular season standpoint. They win 65 games 2 years ago. He realizes he doesn't want to play with Paul. Paul didn't exactly really want to play with him. They trade him for Westbrook. They give up all of these picks in the future to take on Russell Westbrook and his extra money, even though Paul's the better player, and yes, he's older, but with shorter money. And they do that for him. And just because they didn't let Harden chime in on the Silas hiring, which is hilarious, too, because there's these reports that both Westbrook and Harden have been super respectful of Steven Silas's hiring. Yeah, except for the part where they won't talk to him and they both want out. Okay, cool. Yeah, other than that, it's been awesome. And so they do this Westbrook deal, which is clearly not going to work and is a bad financial investment. And now Harden is to the point where he's like, yeah, I want out, but I only want to go to one team. The only reason I want to have it happen is twofold. I can't wait to see what it is in Brooklyn. Because the league is still about acquiring talent, so everybody would probably do it, especially if you're giving up the pieces that Brooklyn would be reportedly giving up. But then I want to see Houston fans that have come at me for 7 years, I would say, maybe 5, not 8, but for a really long time arguing as I've said, hey, I don't like watching this. I don't think it works. It actually came very close, so I give him credit for that. But Harden is propped up probably by like 25, 30%, which is these absurd usage rates. Do you realize that Harden last year, of all the players in the NBA, of every offensive Houston possession, he had the ball in his hands for just over 50% of the time. So every time Houston was on offense, the ball was physically in his hands for over 50% of the time. Now, you could say, well, that's great. Look at all the production. Look at all the stuff that he put up. But I'm not even saying, like, he's terrific. He's awesome. He's healthy. He plays every game. He gets to the rim. He's got this body that holds up. He can make incredible shots. But it's very clear, at least to me, and I don't know why more people don't say this, that you almost have to shave off like 25% of it. So to then see what he'll be like with 2 other guys, Kyrie, who needs the ball, Durant, who doesn't, can do everything because we saw it in Golden State. I actually kind of want to see it happen now, even though I can't believe like Harden might get his way by saying, I want out after I helped create this thing. I'm part of the shortcomings. Thanks for all the picks you moved. Hey, good luck on having Westbrook at $47 million in a couple years. I want to leave, but I only want to be traded to one team, so I've also destroyed the fucking trade market.
Right. So what about Mike D'Antoni? Because he's on that coaching staff out there. Presumably he would be on board with that, but he would also know firsthand all this stuff about James Harden, his fit in Houston. Like, why would it make sense for him to want, in theory, to bring Harden to Brooklyn?
Because if there's one thing that's been constant about this league is that every time you have a chance to add a special player, a top 10 player, even the worst, the most anti-Harden person, you can't put this guy outside of like the top 7 or 8. When you start saying he's more productive than Jordan, you're like, okay, relax. Which is something Daryl Morey has argued in the past, which I doubt he's going to argue now, that he's not tweeting about the Rockets the whole time. But why wouldn't he want to be with D'Antoni? Like, what? D'Antoni hooked him up. D'Antoni let him do whatever he wanted.
No,
so I don't see where that would be a problem.
I'm saying from the other end, like D'Antoni.
D'Antoni doesn't matter. He's irrelevant. He's irrelevant in this thing. He's an assistant coach, and you add the player and you worry about it later. Mm-hmm. And there have been times where you go, oh, man, this may not work. You add the player because it's so hard to get these players, and then you go, hey, it didn't work after a year. Now we're going to go ahead and trade somebody else, which is why I'm wondering if Kyrie is signing off on this. Because you would – I mean, look, I can never forget trying to figure out Kyrie, but I could actually see him not loving it at all because now all of a sudden he's going to be off the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
If it happens.
It's the most like hard the Rockets and then Harden demanding a trade to the Nets would be the most this league.
Yeah.
Like everyone freaking out. And then I saw Harden did did he do an Instagram story last night where he took off
no cap.
Yeah, no cap.
James
which
Harden.
is just this league. Yeah, boom.
Boom.
Got him.
Capless.
Some are saying it was just a sponsored post for Body Armor.
Oh.
He turned down $50 million from the Rockets to do a sponsored post.
He's going to
for
make
Body
it
Armor.
back.
Smart guy.
Yeah, Mike Rapoli,
get some equity in there.
Yeah.
Well, what's the strip club situation like in Brooklyn? I don't think it's that great.
Not good.
New York is a terrible strip club town.
Scores?
Yeah, does Harden even know that? Someone should tell him.
I don't hang out in Brooklyn very often. I went to go visit Big Cat once, and we walked around to a couple different bars, and none of them had TVs, and I'd never heard of any of the beers. And I think one had drapes over the windows.
Yep.
And I just went, that's
Brooklyn.
Is this what it's like in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
And you kind of couldn't tell who was bartending and who was there?
Yes. I always tell people I have more televisions in my home than any bar in Brooklyn has.
It's not a lie.
Yeah. It's
do you remember that SNL skit where I think it's Will Ferrell and it's that play called Red Ships of Spain?
No.
This is probably too old for you guys. They had this thing where it was like they did an ad for this musical and it was called Red Ships of Spain. And then it was stupid, but it was still working. And what killed it was they started doing reviews. They were reading out the reviews. They're like, the New Yorker says, I just went up on stage and walked around and nobody even cared. That's what it feels like in some of those spots you took me to in Brooklyn, where you're like, am I actually on for the next hour, or what's
bartender? Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah. All right. Last question from me. Craziest thing that you see happening or you're hearing. So this is actually based on fact, not just like who I like, but like who's going to be the big mover. Give me something. Give me some juice. Give us some juice that people can then go pawn it off and pretend it's their inside source.
I've gotten burned so many times on this because I'll just casually be like, yeah, this is kind of something you're hearing. We should just do one that's horrible and see if it happens.
Okay. Do it.
I'm hearing the Celtics are going to sign Larry Bird with their mid-level.
Okay. Oof. Could happen.
He's a little old.
Corner threes, winning attitude, understands the franchise, understands the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. That one works. Who are the Bulls going to take for real? They're going to take the Florida State kid.
I've heard that's where Patrick Williams starts.
Yeah.
Part of me really wants to watch Zach LaVine and LaMelo Ball play together.
Ooh. Now that would be interesting. And I would be cool with Obi Toppin just so I could say it.
Are you a Kobe White guy, or is it just based on hope? Because already it's funny how the league kind of talks about him as if it's accepted, like he's not really playing, he's really more of a backup, which is not what you want to hear.
Yeah. I'm the whole Bulls roster sucks guy. I'm pretty much like get rid of everyone except Wendell Carter.
What about Laurie?
I'm out on him.
I still hold out so much hope for Wendell. It's probably
Yeah.
pathetic.
Yeah, keep him and then get rid of everyone else. if
Oh,
you can.
I've got a dumb take. You tell me why this is dumb. I was watching some film today of Halliburton. He looks like he stinks at shooting, but they all go in. What's up with that?
That's exactly what I say to everybody. It looks terrible. He doesn't get off the ground. It's the shot put off the front of the shoulder, and it goes in. It's 41%. Halliburton's a really, really nice player. The problem is back to that original rule, is if you're up high in the draft, you go, man, we could probably plug this guy in and play right away, and he makes a ton of sense. Like, look at Golden State. Golden State, Halliburton would probably fit in better with them tomorrow than any other player in this draft. But if they decided to say, we're just going with Anthony Edwards because he projects to be, what he is with that size and all this thing, we can fix his shooting and he's going to have 1 million open shots. Like, that's why I don't get on the GMs. There's some things that all of us would be critical of, but those are the times where I go, okay, yeah, like I'm going to side with you. Even if you get it wrong, I completely understand the rationale of deciding to take a guy like that over Halliburton, who fits in with them, because Halliburton can play with the ball and off the ball probably better than any of these other guards.
It's also nice for their job security as a general manager. Not that in Golden State that would be an issue, but just like taking a guy that is like right off the bat, he's a development guy, so you can't really be judged on that draft pick for another 3 years, and then you've got 3 years to maybe luck out on another pick. So it keeps you around for a while.
Yeah, you just hope that he drops like 30 one time in the middle of February, and everyone will be like, see?
He's improving.
It's
Well, that's
coming.
why that's one of the many reasons why so many people hated Hinkie in Philadelphia, because you would talk to a guy and be like, all right, so let me get this straight. Like, I'm going to lose my job if I don't make the playoffs this year because I've had injuries for a couple years. And this motherfucker's going, hey, in year 6, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was not a lot of coworkers on that one going, yeah, I really respect this whole thing. Like, there's tanking, and then there's having, I think they had 6 different Hoyas on that bad Hoyas team on the roster at one point. That's always the only time I'll allow the would Kentucky beat ... That Sixers team that I think won 10 games and had 8 or 9 guys play that never played in the league ever again might be the only time, like when Kentucky was loaded with lottery picks, that it's even worth having a conversation about.
Sam Hinkie, special person. All right, Ryan, thank you. We know you're busy. Everyone go listen to the Ryen Russillo podcast. You probably already do. And we got to get you and Billy to lift together at some point soon.
Absolutely. I'm not down on Billy. I've never been more up.
There we go.
I think Billy just needs to, maybe he just has to see somebody else be able to lift more than him, and then he'll realize maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe today's the first day of the rest of your life, Billy.
There it is.
Yeah.
Today's the first day of the rest of your life.
I would love if you were my mentor, Ryan. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.